My name's Adam Smith and I'm the founder of the Real Junk Food Project. And before I tell you about the project and what we do, how we do it, why we do it the way that we do it, I'm going to tell you a little bit of background history about myself, give you a bit of context and perspective as to how I came to where I am today. I'm born in Leeds, born in South Leeds, and I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. I ended up in care for many, many years, ended up in prison, addicted to drugs and alcohol, etc., all the bad things. And about 7 years ago to the day, I was found in a car. I'd been sucking on exhaust fumes for around 16 hours. I was pretty much dead. The only thing that kept me alive is the fact that I had cocaine in my system. I thought it'd try and kill me quicker, but it didn't. It actually kept my heart beating. And I was found after 16 hours by the police. They triangulated my last text message to my friend to say that I was doing what I was doing and smashed the car open, and I spent 3 days in hospital recovering. My skin was entirely black, pretty much gone. And I woke up and my best friend Chris, who's one of my directors today, turned around to me and said, "You might as well stop doing that because you're not very good at it." And he was right. And so I then decided, well, I'm a chef, I know how to cook, what should I do? And I thought the easiest way of getting rid of my problems is by going halfway around the world. So I disappeared to Australia with very little money. And I became quite a successful chef over there. I was a chef of an amazing restaurant in Melbourne, the head chef there. And they said to me they wanted to give me citizenship and basically keep me there forever, me and my son's mother. And so in order to do that, we had to go work on farms. So I went north for 3 hours, went to work on a farm in Shepparton, working on an almond farm. It was very boring. I spent a lot of time just watching trees, waiting for nuts to ripen. It was rubbish. And then when it finally riped, I just had to hit him with a stick. That's all I had to do, just literally walk around his farm, hit him with a stick. There were 6 pigs on this farm that lived with us, and for the I think it was about, I don't know, 60 days that we were there. And one day, they just had this huge shipment of food arrive. There was squashes, courgettes, apricots, there were vanilla, you name it. There was like these 1-ton vats just appeared on this farm. And me and my partner was eating this food, and it was meant for the pigs. And I said to the farmer, "Why on earth are these pigs eating better than me and my partner? It's just crazy." And then he explained to me about supermarket contracts and about how they cancelled contracts. They had 2 or 3 farms growing the same produce, cancelled 2 of them, went with the best, etc. And the cost and logistics involved in diverting this food was too expensive for these farms, so they just literally shared it between themselves. Now, I'd just come from Sydney. I'd spent 3 months in Sydney for 3 months, seeing poverty on a huge scale. I worked with the Occupy camps in the city centre. I think the council raided them 60 times in the space of 3 months, and they recuperated and got back together the next day, and they just fed anybody that came to meet them. And they really needed this food, and I kind of questioned, why on earth do we have this system of food being allowed to be wasted, which is still perfectly edible, and yet people that clearly needed the food not getting access to it? And the farmers just turned around to me and said, "Look, it's not going to be possible." So it was the 22nd of February 2013. I'm stood on this farm. It's the middle of a desert with almond trees, and I said, I'm going to create the Real Junk Food Project, and I'm going to feed the world, using the skills and knowledge and experience that I've got within catering to go back to the UK and show the world that this food is still perfectly edible. And so my partner fell pregnant at the time. She came back home. I spent 4 months in Australia literally just researching what on earth I was about to do. And during that time, I went through Melbourne and up to Cairns, and I went to experience some pay-as-you-feel concepts. And there's an amazing one called Lentil as Anything in Melbourne. And I went and met the guys, and they basically, the guy called Shinaka who created this concept basically had a menu on the board, and he was sick to death of people saying to him, "I can't afford the food." So he basically rubbed off all the prices and said, "Pay as you feel." And that's what they did. But what they had is they did suggested donations. They said, for every $10 goes towards the rent, every $20 you pay goes towards labour, etc. And I said, well, what happens if people paid with anything? Imagine if people could pay with like time or skills or just anything. But people didn't pay at all. And he said it wouldn't work. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to go do it. And that's what I did. I came back to the UK in October. December 2013, we opened this cafe, which was known as the Real Junk Food Project at the time. It was the world's first pay-as-you-feel concept cafe that used food that was surplus, accidental damage, and past its expiry date, purposely trying to prove to people that this food was safe. So we had this for a couple of months and nothing was really happening. It was dribs and drabs. There was a few people coming through the doors, a little bit of excitement about it. And then The Guardian came and did a video on me in around March 2014 it was. And it was close to 100,000 people contacting us from around the world. It was absolutely insane what happened to us. We had to shut the cafe. I remember there was a couple of us in the cafe on all our laptops just replying to everybody saying thank you for your messages. Then I started getting videos sent to me from people from like South America and Asia, families who were hungry, saying, come and feed us. And then I was like, how on earth am I going to be in Armley in Argentina at exactly the same time? Like, it's impossible. And I met this amazing woman who was part of some cooperative movements in Leeds called CAF. And I said to her, how are we going to do this, CAF? How are we going to go from this one cafe to any more cafes outside of Armley? And she said, just let it happen organically. So that's what we did. We created like a blueprint, a template of what we did. And then we just created a PDF. Anybody that emailed us, we just give them it and said, go and do it. We now have 127 cafes in 7 countries across the world since 2013. And again, it is just an organic network. So we did that. And then I met this incredibly crazy, as bonkers as me, head teacher, Nathan Atkinson. Some of you may know him. He's an incredible man. And he came up to me and he said, he had this issue of resources and money being thrown into schools and children turning up to schools, primary school children turning up to schools, hungry, no food in their bellies, and just not prepared or had the capacity to learn. And he said, how about we divert surplus food into young people's bellies? And I said, I'd do it, but I don't think the authority would let us do it, and I don't think anybody else would let us do it. So we said, well, let's just do it as a one-off. Let's just feed breakfast to as many kids as we can using surplus food. So we did. We managed to feed 10,000 children across 4 cities breakfast one morning. Poor Keith had to drive all the way to Sunderland to one school from Leeds just to deliver to one school that signed up to his project. And about a week or so before, there was around, you can't see on this, there's a little car park around the back of this cafe, and 9 tons of milkshake turned up literally a week before from Kalina, I think it is, some dairy distribution company. There were people around this cafe with wiggly bins filling it up with these milkshakes and dragging it off, and it was bonkers. And we managed to pull it off. We managed to feed 10,000 children breakfast. So me and Nathan got back together, and everybody, we were exhausted. And we said, let's just do this every single day. So we created what is now known as Fuel for School. Last April, we launched it to around 17 schools in Leeds. There's a service level agreement that we have with the schools where we deliver around 70 to 100 kilos of surplus food a week. Between 30 and 40% of that is fruits and vegetables. And basically what we do is we have a market stall. We have a group of school ambassadors. I think it's usually year 5 or year 6. Kevin, our Fuel for School coordinator, goes into the schools, does an assembly, does a workshop with these ambassadors, and the ambassadors run the market stall using the pay-as-you-feel concept. And what we do is we allow anybody to pay with anything. In the cafes, the schools, you can pay with money, time, you can walk out the door. You don't have to give anything if you don't want to. So we empower these young people. We basically go into schools, we give them access to this food, we get them to run these market stalls. And then at the end of the day, teachers, parents and children come to this stall and they can take whatever food they want and they can pay as you feel. We just launched year 2 this week. In fact, the first delivery just went out today for year 2. We now feed around 20,000 children across Leeds and Bradford in 50 schools. Which is phenomenal to say. There's one man in a van delivering that every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You're going to have to believe it to see it. And the network, within 3.5 years, we've diverted over 2,000 tonnes of food worldwide. Leeds currently, I'll stick to Leeds because it's hard to like us understand global figures, but we feed around 35,000 people a week in Leeds. At the moment, we do outside catering, weddings, events. We also do Fuel for School. And then accidentally, as Louise mentioned, I don't know if you did mention the share house actually, the thing, is last August, obviously being an adult, I completely forgot that kids stopped school in 6-week holidays, completely forgot all about it. And all of a sudden all these schools stopped and we had like 3.2 tonnes of food that we were delivering every week to these schools that were just sat there, and we were like, what the hell are we going to do with all these? We had to get 40 wheelie bins one week just to shift all this food because it all went. And I said, we can't keep doing this because we couldn't stop intercepting this food from all the supermarkets and warehouses and food banks and cafes and everywhere that we were getting this food from. We couldn't just stop it just because we couldn't get rid of it. So I put a Facebook post out and just said to people, please come get this food. Please just come down and take it off us because we're going to end up wasting it. And then we accidentally created the world's first pay-as-you-feel supermarket. It was accidentally, we didn't mean to do it all. The media plugged it as a supermarket. We call it a share house. So basically there is now a 7,000 square foot unit in Pudsey in Leeds. We only open a couple of evenings and the weekends at the moment, but we did open 6 days a week, and anybody from any walk of life can walk in, do their shopping, give back anything they want in return. And we opened that in August last year. We now have 3 share houses across the UK. We have one in Leeds, one in Sheffield and one in Birmingham. I think Jake, have you volunteered at the share house in Birmingham? The Birmingham one. We've now just literally yesterday devised a blueprint, a template where we were going to be launching 10 more share houses and Fuel for School across cities and towns across the UK. We're now working with the Scottish Government. I had a meeting there last week to see if we can launch Food for School next September to over 300,000 children every single week, where 300,000 children will have access to surplus food. The problem is, and I can see it on people's faces, you're all thinking, how on earth are you going to feed all these people with surplus food if we're trying to put surplus food out of business by abolishing the problem? And that's the aim of the Real Junk Food Project. We were designed to put ourselves out of business. We're not trying to sustain ourselves. We're not funded in any way, shape or form. We have pockets of money thrown at us now and again, but we survive off our own pay-as-you-feel donations. It's incredibly difficult. And we believe that we can empower the next generation to grow up to understand and be able to provide for themselves, have the basic skill sets about food, where food comes from, hopefully not shop at Tesco's. Don't talk to me about Tesco's, please. And that's what we're aiming to do, and that's what Food for School is all about. So the next step for us is to look into growing, working with the incredible edible networks and all the kind of guerrilla gardening, local school gardens, etc., to start looking at if we can basically create the full circle of children learning how to grow food themselves, using it in some kind of pay-as-you-feel communal concept, and then being conscious of their own waste as well. That's me about done, guys. I can speak about this for absolutely hours. You don't want to know some of the stories I've got about food waste. I'm opening it up to any questions if anybody's got anything. Thank you.